was in England looking to buy a pre-war vintage car for car touring, and test drove Alfa Romeos and Bugattis and Bentleys, and finally decided that the Bentleys were the best way to go for for endurance car tours. So this is a 4.5-liter straight four engine that was set up to run Le Mans. It had just been restored by a gentleman named Ulf Smith from Sweden, and his best friend was Stanley Mann of Stanley Mann Racing in Radlett, England, and that's where I was visiting to test drive some Bentleys, and fell in love with this car. The only major stuff, obviously there's just little maintenance things. We tour a lot in this car, many thousands of miles. And so I just finally, after 20 years, had the engine rebuilt last year. I shipped the car to England and had the engine rebuilt. And so now it's a fresh engine, but we had over 150,000 miles on the engine when we sent it over. The suspension is basically a leaf spring suspension, and if you look at it, it's wrapped in a rope and then painted. All the old vintage pre-war Bentleys were done in this fashion. The shock absorbers are friction shocks, and everything's adjustable. You can adjust everything on the car, from the suspension to the toe end to the camber or the front end. They were designed back in the 20s, obviously, right after World War I. And they were designed like aircraft, and so everything in the car is completely adjustable to suit how you want the ride. And if you're racing, touring, if you're on a long track, short track, or whatever, you can adjust everything to those conditions. This is a D-type transmission. It's a 4-speed H pattern. There's no synchros in the gearbox, so this is double clutching and being very careful with your ear as to what the RPMs are when you slide it into gear, especially on a downshift. Yeah, shifter's on the right side between my knee and the side of the car. Well, the British horns, this one's a klaxon, and this actually is, there's probably 10 or more different type of horns you can put into a car. I've got another old Bentley, I've got 3 different horns in it, depending on what I want to do. If I want to get a truck out of the way, I've got one, and if I want to entertain the kids on the side of the road, I've got another nice old horn. So, yeah, they're the old British horns. That's a 30-gallon tank. The actual Le Mans cars had 40-gallon tanks, so they would be taller than the one that I've got on the back. But this tank holds enough fuel to run all day long. As long as you want to drive the car in a day, that tank will hold the fuel for it. Yeah. This engine's it's just rebuilt. It's been built by William Metcalf, a vintage Bentley in Hillbrow, England. And it's basically now 5.3 liters, and it's the full race version of this engine. And so I estimate this is probably running in somewhere in the neighborhood of 190 horsepower. The dashboard instrument layout, there's no 2 pre-war Bentleys, and that's any Bentley built prior to 1930 that has the same layout, because these cars were completely bespoke. They were custom built. Everybody laid them out exactly the way they wanted. And what people don't understand is, in the 20s, you didn't walk into a showroom and buy a car. You basically bought an engine and a chassis, and then you hired a coach builder to build your car. So this body is a Van den Pla body, and the Van den Pla made the bodies for the Le Mans race cars and stuff. But there were many other coach builders that built coaches or the bodies for vintage Bentleys. And so basically, they were so expensive back in the 20s. They were basically equivalent to the value of like 3 or 4 houses in London to buy one Bentley. And so what people would do was they would take their, if let's say a young man bought a Bentley that was a 2-seater or a Le Mans race car or something, gets married, has kids, all of a sudden he needs a car to carry the family around in. He wouldn't just sell the car, keep the car, and go buy another car. He would take this car in, and he would take it to a coach builder and have a body put on it that had a back seat in it and more of a saloon-style body, for his family. And that's the way they did it in the 20s. And that's one thing people don't realize is cars weren't in showrooms, fully put together back then. You basically had to go in and design your car yourself, hire the coach builder, and then you design. That's why all the bodies on all those old cars are a little different. Yeah, like with these old Bentleys, basically this is the ignition right here, and you can advance or retard the ignition on this. And so basically it's almost like, you know, you're taking your distributor and adjusting your timing, and that's basically what this does. And so right here it says ignition on here. This is what this is the mode I put it in to start the car. Now if I'm running up a mountain road, you know, a very steep mountain road in the Alps, you're going to pull this, you're going to retard it down, you know, because the engine's going to run better at low RPM, pulling up the hill and stuff. And if you're running 90 miles an hour down the road at 3,000 RPMs, you're going to have this thing in advanced. The other thing is over here is the throttle, and this is all, you know, you can actually set your idle with this, and you could actually just run it all the way up and run 90 miles an hour down the road with this rather than your gas pedal, and you would never do that because it would be unsafe. On the dash here, I can adjust the mixture on the carburetors. I can make them richer or leaner right here and stuff right on there. These are the magneto buttons, fuel pump. So basically starting a vintage Bentley is like starting an aircraft from World War I. This handle right here, this goes to the auto vac, because back in the, before the war, World War II, you didn't have electric fuel pumps or anything like that. And so basically there's an apparatus underneath on the firewall called the auto vac, and this is the pump that pumps the pressure into it to suck the fuel from the fuel tank up to the auto vac to go into the engine. And so you'll see these racers from the 20s just pumping the heck out of this when their car starts running out of fuel because they ran out of pressure. And so that's what this knob right here is. Well, this is a car has a lot of sentimental feelings about it from us, my wife and I. It's our first car. We've done a lot of touring in it, and we've driven it from Los Angeles to Pebble Beach many times. We drove this car from Las Vegas to Banff, Canada, and over to Seattle on one tour, and many other tours. And we've toured New Zealand, Australia. We've done London to Monaco a bunch of times for the historic Grand Prix. So this car has a lot of sentimental value to it. Actually, this car's getting replaced by a new 4.5 liter. It's not new; it's new to me, but it's Wolf Bernardo, the chairman of the board of Bentley Motor Cars and the only person to ever win Le Mans 3 years in a row. I bought his car at auction a couple of years ago and had it restored, and it's the exact configuration of this car. So this car is going to go in, and I'm going to sell it to a friend in England. And I'm building a super sport to do endurance events that take you off-road.